Welcome back to another edition of Between Two Fars. I'm Warnicki Miller, and I am joined once again by Tracy Lee Belford. She is an attorney for almost 30 years here at NASA, working primarily at Kennedy. We've been talking about post-contract dispute. What are the steps you should take to make sure that the lessons learned get implemented in your workforce? And right now, we would like to just do a pinpoint focus on emails, how emails are treated during litigation or in disputes, what things you need to be aware of, what things you need to avoid. So here to tell you everything you ever wanted to know about litigation, contract disputes, and your emails is Ms. Tracy Lee Belford. Thank you so much for joining us again. I know you just came out of a big settlement, $30 million worth of claims, right?
Yeah.
How did emails play a role in this?
Email is sort of the bane of our existence, and I think a lot of us can empathize with that. When you're in a discovery mode on a big case, the sheer amount of email that people are generating is just really astonishing, because people use it for everything, even with one-word answers, and you're welcome, and oh no, you're welcome, and no, you're welcome, and I mean, it goes on. The chains go on and on sometimes, and so trying to find that highest level of email is tricky by itself. But one of the things that came out of the lessons learned that we did at the end of this litigation was trying to emphasize to the client how email should really be used on a project of any kind. Let's not talk badly about the contractor in your emails. If you have something grumpy to say, perhaps pick up your telephone, grab somebody and go to lunch, go walk the halls and have that conversation. Let's not have that conversation in email. Let's also not talk about liability and have contracting officers or engineers or project managers making decisions about whether or not we're going to be liable for something that we've actually asked the contractor to do. Let's not have those kinds of conversations on email. Let's have a meeting and talk about what the problem is and why we're concerned about liability, and let's have the lawyers weighing in on that, because that's sort of our job. And this encryption became probably the biggest, to leave the biggest issue for last, generally speaking, we found that a lot of the folks working on the project were encrypting emails when they wanted to have a private discussion, and they understand it now, but they didn't then, that encrypting an email somehow protected it, as made it a more privileged kind of conversation. And what they quickly learned during discovery was that we were going back to them and making them unencrypt those emails, especially if they were relevant and we had to turn them over, they would have to decrypt them, which is a process. Only the sender and the receiver can do that. You can't have a contractor somewhere just decrypt email. It doesn't work. The certificates don't work that way. So it's complicated and it's time consuming, especially if you have an employee who has left the agency who's key to the project. So, and there were a lot of things said in encrypted emails that the authors of those emails were not comfortable letting other people see, and they learned very quickly that encryption is not privilege.
So going forward, what sort of lessons learned or tips would you give to the average project manager, contracting officer, core working on any project, but I know yours was specific to a construction project. What sort of good practices should they be employing instead of some of the emailing practices you saw in this case?
So we've emphasized to the organizations that they should follow NASA protocol when they use encrypted email. If they're transmitting sensitive information, maybe plans or drawings that aren't yet available, or finished or completed, or they're sending a presentation to management, perhaps, they need to be following the agency protocol for using encryption on email, and they should not be using encryption on discussions related to the project that are routine. And I think they understand that now. So on this particular project, we had a pretty easy a way to make that distinction. We had a section of the building that actually is a highly secure facility. You have to have a security clearance to be in the room, and things happen in there, and it has to be constructed in a very specific way in accordance with national regulations, not NASA regulations, but very specific other kinds of regulations. Emails associated with that, they encrypted, and that's okay, because there's a lot of things that we don't want the world to know about that particular corner of the building, if you will. But a conversation about whether or not a pile should be 90 feet or not is probably not an encrypted level conversation. And we've also tried to emphasize conversations highly underrated. You can still have just a face-to-face conversation with someone about something, or sit in a conference room in a meeting and talk with people and sort out issues. It doesn't all have to be done on email.
Yeah. Do you have a good rule of thumb for when should you pick up the phone or have a meeting, and when should it be an email?
If you're going to say something bad or derogatory, pick up the phone, walk down the hall. If you're concerned about liability, or there's you get a feeling that there's some dispute bubbling up because we think they should be doing something, but they think they don't have to do it, don't have a lot of conversation on email about that. Maybe that's when you get the meeting together with the contracting officer, your lawyer, and your engineers.
Oh, that is some terrific advice for our stakeholders. Thank you so much, Tracy Lee. We really all, even the attorneys, can take this advice to heart. And remember, encryption is not a substitute for privilege during discovery. Join us again next time, Between Two Fars.